And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
That means we've got.
Hey, welcome into Juckonbucks on a Thursday morning. Appreciate you all so much. We have got a kind of an abbreviated show today, but a banger tomorrow. So tomorrow we are going to do our Friday morning live show. We're going to preview the games. We're going to talk about the games together. And we're also going to set up a little call-in line. So my buddy Ron James from the Morning Roast taught me how to set up a call-in line. So if you'd like to call in, I'm going to have in the description of tomorrow's video the call-in link. And it'll be a StreamYard link. When you sign in there, it's going to make it seem as though your picture is going to be visible. Don't disregard that. Your picture won't be visible. It'll just be a phone call. And we'll talk about whatever you want. So I'm going to put that link in this video right now. So this will be in the description. It'll be in again tomorrow. But if you want to download it right now today, you can do that now. So tomorrow, 9 a.m., Friday morning, we're going to do the live show, and we are going to make it a call-in version. So if you want to call, go ahead and get that ready. Anybody's welcome. Any fan bases are welcome. Just remember, if you come at me sideways, I'm going to respond in kind. So we'll do that tomorrow. Today, I was watching the All 22 on the Coach's Film Room that is on Menace to Sports on the website. And, you know, it's such a great tool. I know I say it all the time, but I want to go over. So like we've talked about all the good, right? Over and over and over again. And can I just say like how obnoxious it is when you talk about what you're seeing out of the team that is going really well and all the responses you get back are you haven't played anybody, like even from our own fan base, like, well, let's settle down. Like, listen, should we just wait to talk about the team until we play Iowa? Should we just like not say anything until then? Because like we're not going to do that. We can only talk about who we've played and how the team looks versus who we've played. So unless we preface literally every opinion with, we haven't played anyone of note yet, but then we're just going to talk about what we're seeing so far. And I think there's a lot we can take away despite the level of competition. But we can also take away some things that haven't looked so good yet. And one of the biggest spots, areas of concern, I guess we had three, right? We had three areas of concern: tight end, offensive line, maybe four, I guess, quarterback, and linebacker. Quarterback, I mean, I don't know how you guys are feeling. I'm feeling quite well about quarterback at this point. Most specifically because Chip Kelly is doing what great coaches do and featuring the quarterback in the offense to the quarterback's strong suit, right? What he does best, that's what he's doing. You don't often see that. You don't see, by the way, Will Howard came here when Bill O'Brien was on board. How different would things look? And how frustrated might we be at this point if this was Will Howard and Bill O'Brien together instead of Will Howard and Chip Kelly? I'm not sure, but it's an interesting discussion because he came aboard when Bill O'Brien was here. They weren't going to look like this, right? We know that. But Chip utilizing Will, accentuating what he does best, it's perfect. So as far as quarterback, I think it's a substantial upgrade from last year. And of course, yes, Kyle McCord is doing very well. That was not going to happen here. That was over. So I don't think that there was any way that was relationship is going to continue. You upgraded, I think, for this offense with Will Howard. So box checked for me, regardless of competition. Definitive upgrade. 2, the offensive line. The addition of Seth McLaughlin and what he has brought to this offensive line, definitive upgrade and raise the ceiling immediately, regardless of the competition, because we're seeing these guys work together and it looks great. Tegra Shabola looks very solid at right guard. Happy he won the job. Offensive line, I think definitely you can say without a doubt, just based on these guys all being a year older and a year stronger, the guys who have returned in Josh Fryer, in Simmons, in Donovan, it was always going to be better just based on that. So the offensive line upgrade. Linebacker, Cody Simon, the emergence of Cody Simon as the leader of this team, as the Blocko, as the captain. We're comparing Cody at Mike to Tommy. I mean, Cody's more athletic. Cody is just as smart. I think just as good of a leader. Pretty much a wash to me there. Then at will, we're comparing Steel Chambers to Sonny. Sonny hasn't, listen, Sonny's played one game now at that position, at will. It wasn't a great game, but for his first game starting at that position, pretty damn solid. And I think that most of us believe in Sonny to get it done. And then the emergence of Arvell Reese, I think without a doubt, you've upgraded at linebacker. I firmly believe that. So upgrade at quarterback, upgrade at offensive line, upgrade at linebacker, upgrade in juice. That's really big for me. Big time upgrade in juice. The final area was tight end. And I was on a show and talked about this. If you were to choose one area of your team, because there's always going to be one that is the lowest area, and they're not all going to be the same. There's always going to be one that's at the bottom. If you were going to choose which position group would be the one that was maybe trailing behind a little bit, which position group would you pick? Well, you wouldn't pick quarterback. You wouldn't pick defensive line or secondary. You certainly wouldn't pick offensive line. Maybe running back. I think it would be tight end for most people. I think most people would say, okay, if one's got a trail behind, I'll make it the tight ends. Now, not great for the Buckeyes, who run a lot of 12 personnel. So we're in a lot of 2 tight end sets. Hell, we ran a 4 tight end set the other day. Pretty wild there. But the tight end play, the coach of the tight ends, Keenan Bailey, not a tight end by position, like he's didn't. That's the one who played tight end. Not some big tight end experience. He got that job as the tight ends coach because he's been a great organization guy. And we talked about Ryan Day's review of him the other day. Absolutely reveres this dude for what he's done for the program, the hard work he puts into the program. I mean, apparently he goes well above and beyond the call of duty for the program, and that's great. So he was rewarded with a position. He's a position coach. Tight ends are his room. And when you got a guy like that who's been so good, you got to think at some point he's going to be good, but he's pretty damn raw, right? Pretty raw. So what can we expect out of these guys? How much improvement can we see? They haven't started off hot. And today I was watching the coach's film room, and I want to go over just a couple of the things that Zach pointed out. But before we get into a couple of the tight end plays, let's take a look at the end zone view of JJ's touchdown because it is just awesome to watch.
Again, Austin Seerveld, the left guard, just needs to go flatter.
Fun to watch from that angle. By the way, the hypothetical question we talked about last night, would you take Marv as a senior and put him on this team or stick with freshman JJ? Big time results for freshman JJ. Maybe 65 to 70%. I did it on Twitter today, and it was the exact same answer. The interesting thing is there is maybe like a 5% of the fan base very bothered by the premise of the question, by the fact that anybody is voting for JJ. Extremely bothered by it. Feels it's very disrespectful, almost is the vibe I'm getting from them. And I kind of understand where they're coming from, because to me, even saying it out loud felt a little disrespectful to Marvin, a guy who really poured so much into the program. but at the same time, definitely not meant to be disrespectful. Just a fun hypothetical question to talk about. But consistent across the board, the majority of folks who pay attention to the team, and maybe some of them, it's recency bias. We're guilty of that often, but the majority, and it's a decent majority, would take freshman JJ, and I would too. So I understand, but definitely an odd scenario. But back to the tight ends. Let's take a look at a couple of tight end plays, a couple of tight end errors that Zach pointed out, and I'm not just picking on the group. It's it's something we all saw in the game, but the way he breaks it down really lets you know exactly why the error happens. So this one in particular is an interesting piece to take a look at here.
Oh, gee, what are you doing? See, this is the guy on offense who needs to do better. This is counter. You see, Travion shows that way, and now G. Scott is reading this kick-out block. If the guy comes underneath and the lineman has to wheel around and pin him, G. Scott goes around. If, like this, the guard pulls here and he kicks it out, G. Scott needs to be up inside to get to his responsibility, which is number one right here. You tell me what he should do. That's simple as shit. Get up in there and block. And here's the other problem we got here. You got G. Scott, and then you got Will Crackermarack. Watch Will Crackermarack. He's going to go back to block that backside linebacker. Swing and a miss. 2 tight ends, 2 minuses. Everyone else does a pretty good job. Tegra needs to, he's going, they got a nice little twist on here. Is that natural?
Pretty piss poor, man. Pretty piss poor. And when you're talking about one play, you're down on the goal line, you're in 12 personnel, both of your tight ends whiff their blocks. By the way, how great is that to hear? And I think sometimes I forget, right, that Zach can do, like, how many hours, just imagine how many hours he has sat and done this. You know what I mean? Because he's what he does, he's really good at what he does now. Gained a huge following and very popular. And I almost forget, like, oh yeah, this dude spent a decade breaking down stuff like this. I don't know, 20 hours a week. So really interesting to get that perspective, to get that education. And especially when, you talk about football a lot, to be educated. So I would encourage everybody to check that out on the Menace of Sports website. It is really well worth the money. And he does a lot of games, not just Buckeye games. I had the joy to watch the Michigan film the other day against Texas, and that was just delightful to watch. I can confidently say that offensive line, unless their free agency comes about in the middle of the season here in 2024 for college football, they're screwed. They're so screwed. Like, they're not getting any better because there's a couple dudes on that line that are just absolute stiffs. I mean, just total stiffs. You can't just get athletically better. But here is the look
Josh
of
Simmons.
the long,
Where's
beautiful
the hole,
touchdown.
dude? Right there. G. Scott with the hold. Watch. As this guy tries to disengage, watch him. Right there. He's holding him. And then he lets go. The ref throws a flag on him. Completely unnecessary. But look at the effort by Carnell Tate. You want to.
Now, number one, I want to, thanks to Zach for letting us use that. He told me I could use this stuff to kind of highlight some things on the show. And I think that it's something that I've been saying all off season, that I just feel very uncomfortable with G. Scott blocking. And I did not think that unless he made a huge improvement, it was going to be good enough to be a really solid tight end this year. And I always preface it by saying how much of a great Buckeye G is and how much I respect him and think he's a great dude and someone that I'll always think of fondly as a great Buckeye. But he's not a starting tight end. It's just that simple. Not on a team trying to win a national championship, which is why I think we are seeing them push so hard to give the opportunity to Jelani to get in there and earn this job. And we've seen so many times in a situation like this with a guy like Jelani, where they say, no, sir, you are going to get this right in practice before you're going to get those reps. And in the first 2 games, we've seen him get as many reps in game 1, 2 less reps. Well, 2 less than Will Kazmarek, 1 less than G. Scott. In game 2, Jelani had the most reps of any tight end. And that's saying something because Jelani just, not quite ready. However, he did have the highest graded blocking percentage of the tight ends. So, are we going to see this turn? Are we going to see a little less rotation and a little more of Jelani? I would say at this point, I certainly hope so, because if G. Scott doesn't have it down by now, and he can't do it against Western, where are we going here? I don't think it gets any better. So that's my bummer of the day to start the show. Shout out to my sponsor, ColumbusApparelCo.com. At Columbus Apparel Co., you can get all sorts of Columbus and Ohio gear, and they specialize in screen printing, any kind of garment you want, any kind of a lot of different methods. For instance, this hat right here, this is called a leatherette patch instead of your standard embroidery that I got done that they did for me for my hats, which is really cool. And I absolutely love it. Also, they do all these shirts for me and a whole line of Juckonbucks gear. But these shirts in particular, I'm giving these away in contest, one of which tonight we've got Arizona taking on Kansas State from the Little Apple. Arizona, a 7-point favorite. And whoever gets closest to that score gets themselves a Juckeyes shirt sent to them courtesy of ColumbusApparelCo.com. Check them out. They're good folks. Every week On 3 does a top 10 impact player list. Let's see if we got any Buckeyes this week heading into week 3. At number 1, Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty, who has got himself in the Heisman Trophy conversation, which is really cool. I really like this back, man. This dude's the real deal. I'm wondering how real of a deal this Boise State rushing attack is. He's averaging 237 a game through 2 games. Last week against Oregon, he went for just about 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. The Boise State rush attack looks really legit. How legit is that Oregon rushing defense, which we heard all offseason was going to be really good? Speaking of that, this weekend we're going to do a normal Juckonbucks weekend show because there's no post game. And I'm going to have Max Torres on with me. Max Torres from On 3's Scoop Duck. They cover Oregon. I'm going to bring Max on with me to explain to me from the Oregon insider perspective what the hell's going on with those guys. So we'll have Max on. Actually, I got a clip I want to play of Max here, a conversation that Max and I had. We might want to dig into this a little bit tonight. But number 2 on the impact player list, Will Johnson. I don't know if I would include this guy at number 2 on the impact player list after they just got totally destroyed. Yeah, they stayed away from him. Like, how much impact can you be if your team can get totally destroyed and you just get totally taken out of the game? You know what I mean? Like, this isn't an NFL draft ranking. I get it if you want to say he's a really high draft pick, but you can't have a ton of impact on the game when your team gets blown out and you really get no action. I don't know. A lot of people think he's really good. Number 3, Travis Hunter. Again, great player, phenomenal player. I'd love to have him on the Browns. I'd love to have a lot of guys on the Browns. But how much impact can you have when you catch 10 balls for over 100 yards and your team gets absolutely smoked? How much impact do you have? I don't know. Number 4, Calvin Banks, a tackle from Texas. Texas returned all 5 of their starting linemen. They looked really good against the Blue. Number 5, Malachi Starks. That's the safety from Georgia. Made that crazy interception against Clemson. The dude's phenomenal. He's phenomenal, and he and Caleb Downs, the 2 best safeties in the country, bar none. Boy, KJ Bolden at Georgia looking really, really good, and we were so close. We were so close to that one, but he's coming in right off the rip and playing great. Let's see where Caleb Downs lands on this list. Number 6, Carson Beck. According to On 3, the top quarterback in the country. 5 touchdowns in week 2. Georgia, a crazy hard schedule this year. I can't wait to see how this guy performs against it because I'm not 100% sold on him. They got Kentucky this weekend. Unfortunately for us, that Kentucky-Georgia game, one of the very few games that are even worth watching a little bit in the evening slot. And that sucks because Kentucky just got totally destroyed by South Carolina last weekend. South Carolina, not that good. So this one not going to be too close. Number 7, Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart, who has now completed 87% of his passes through 2 weeks, 6 touchdowns against Middle Tennessee. And the dude's on fire. The offense looks great. Playing cream puffs. They're throwing the ball a ton, but we'll see when he plays some competition. I'm a believer in that guy. I'm a believer in Lane Kiffin offensively. I'm still not too sure that the trenches are going to be what we were told they're going to be because we heard the same thing about Oregon and look at them. So they got a couple of good pieces for sure. Does that mean they're necessarily going to play good? Lane Kiffin brought in 25 transfers, and I'm telling you, after what we're seeing at Florida State, what we're seeing at Oregon, I am very wary of any of these teams who have brought in a pile of transfers like that. The most in the country outside of Colorado went to Ole Miss. Number 8, Quinn Ewers, incredibly clutch last week. Texas, my pick to make it to the SEC championship. And I wonder where all the people are who were talking about that vicious SEC schedule that was going to totally grind Texas out. After looking at them last week, the physicality of that team, the size of that team, there's only one team, as I said all summer long, that has a roster that can compete with that roster, man for man, dude for dude, and that's Georgia. All right, Alabama too, I guess. The point is, they're playing against a bunch of teams that they're better than, bigger than, and stronger than. Check this out. Number 9, Cam Ward, who on 3 calls the absolute prize of the transfer portal class. I remember when that transfer portal was going on, Cam Ward was not thought to be the absolute prize of that portal class. He wasn't thought to be the crown jewel of that class. In fact, when he decided to go into the NFL draft, it was kind of comical that Cam Ward was asking for so much money that he ended up going to the draft instead. He ends up coming out of the draft and going to Miami, which seems like a really good fit. But, right now it's looking pretty damn good. But that is not the way that was thought about during the transfer portal. It just wasn't at all. Number 10, Will Campbell, an offensive tackle at LSU. And here we go again, another team that's lost now 50% of their games on their top 10 impact player list. I don't know, man. I don't know. This is why I hate these kind of lists. And I guess I don't know why go over them then. Well, I go over them when they irritate me. I never go over them when I see them and I'm like, yeah, I agree. So I don't know. That's just how it is. Anyway, this is a little snippet of the last time I was on with Max Torres on his show. No, except for I was originally, Max, thinking that the game between the Buckeyes and the Ducks out in Eugene was about a coin flip game. Going to go either way. Coming out of fall, I no longer think that. I now think that the Buckeyes are going to win that game. Now, I'm sure we'll talk again before that game. That's how I'm feeling right now. How about you?
We will definitely be talking before that game. I think there's too much time not to. I think that I have to give Oregon the edge in that game for a couple of reasons. I think you're at home. You're working with more talent than Oregon has ever seen. I think you have a plus head coach in Dan Lanning. Not too sure the Ducks had that in Mario Cristobal the first time these two teams played. Not trying to take anything away from the Ducks in that game. I'm just thinking that they're much more well-rounded now from head to toe than they were the first time these two teams met in Columbus back in 2021 in the shoe. So you're giving the Buckeyes the edge. I think I'm giving the Ducks the edge. Dan Lanning needs that marquee win. Maybe doesn't need it, but I bet that there's some part of him that probably wants that one. And I think that one's obviously what they got circled on the schedule.
All right, that's my guy, Max Torres from Scoop Duck. That's Oregon's on 3. And Max, not just a huge Oregon fan who covers Oregon, an Oregon grad. from Washington, though, coincidentally, which is interesting, from rival territory. Max obviously felt 3 weeks ago very confident in the Ducks. And now we see things are quite a bit different. I watched him do a show the other day, and the Oregon crew, the fan base, melting down. Even despite my guy, OSP the OG, by the way, tagged me on Twitter today to remind me that today is the 3-year anniversary of their victory in the shoe. And my response was, I have never seen a fan base celebrate a regular season win as much as the Oregon fan base celebrates their victory in the shoe. You'd almost think it was a Rose Bowl or a national championship. Like we have won those against them. I don't ever see us bringing them up, though. But they are very into that particular game. So Max, feeling pretty confident at the time. Why don't we have him on for the weekend show, see how he's feeling now? Because things are not right in Oregon. I want his perspective on exactly what's going wrong. I talked to Dillon the other day, and we were talking about Lanning's comments about rotating offensive linemen. Says he's always done it, which I find weird. Listen to what he had to say about the center the other day.
Rotating along the offensive line isn't unusual, but the center is.
I got to stop this right there. That is unusual. It's absolutely unusual to rotate along the offensive line, and definitely at the center. Let's hear what Dan has to say about why they're rotating the center.
Cross college football, what makes you comfortable? Why rotate at that position when it normally doesn't happen?
Give ourselves the best chance to win, right? I mean, we rotated it last year, right? So again, we did it last year. It's all best on if our best chance to win is have just one person there the entire game, then we would absolutely do that. But maybe the guy that snaps it the best, if he's also getting blown off the ball, you need to take a look at another option, right? Because there's two things that happen with the center. Yes, it's how you protect, right? Yes, it's how you run block, but it's also about how you deliver the ball back to the quarterback, right? So having some consistency with that as well. If it's just about the guy that blocks the best, right, and it doesn't matter about the QB exchange, then that kind of changes things, right? But it isn't. That's all involved. And we had some miscues with snaps as well on Saturday, which is something that has to be addressed. But it all plays a part into it. And again, if we had clear 5, these are the guys, no brainer, that's exactly how it should play, and they were clearly better than everyone else, and that's the way we would roll every single time. And I don't know that there's that consistency yet to figure out. But hopefully we figure out where that falls. We'll keep evaluating it.
Second row here, Olivia.
With as many sacks that have been allowed so far this season compared to last season and the season before, how do you work on the trust between Dillon Gabriel and the offensive line going forward?
We don't just keep doing the same thing, expect a different result, right? I think we have to continue to adapt, right, to his skill set and also to our players here. And there's certainly some similar schemes that we're using this year that we used last year as well. But it's also one of the things.
All right, so what do we take away from that? He has got one center who he just called out as getting blown off the ball, but he's good at snapping the ball. And the other guy, well, he can't snap, but he can block. So his solution is to rotate them, right? By the way, that was a tally of 7 right in 90 seconds, which is a bit of a nervous tick, and it's very distracting. I probably have one too. I just don't notice. I'm sure you guys can point it out for me like you do everything else when I mispronounce a name or something. You guys love to correct me on those. Anyway, Dan Lanning rotates offensive linemen. I find that very odd, but they've got some issues on the offensive line, that's for sure. How about Dillon Gabriel? We went into this offseason, and he was by far the absolute, considered by everybody, this is just the guy. This is the guy at quarterback in the transfer portal. Ohio State fans were a little salty that we didn't get a run at Dillon Gabriel. He was pretty much immediately at Oregon, and then we found out that there was some communication between Ryan Day and Dillon Gabriel. At Big Ten Media Days, we found that out. He ended up going to Oregon. It was just pretty much a slam dunk that this was the guy in the transfer portal. Well, this is a dude who started at UCF. Then he transferred to Oklahoma. Oklahoma moved on from him to go with their young guy. Same scenario as Will Howard at K-State. Then he goes to Oregon. I don't know why this assumption was made, but I'll be perfectly honest. I hadn't watched a ton of Dillon Gabriel at Oklahoma. I was kind of taking their word for it and going off his stats. Having watched him in these first 2 games extensively, definitely not impressive. His deep balls suck, and they have already acquiesced that this guy's not Bo Nix. Bo Nix definitely was a better quarterback than Dillon Gabriel. So what do we got here? This team came in as the number 2 favorite to win the Big Ten by a very slim margin, with Ohio State as number 1. And since we've seen the reshuffling of the Big Ten, they're maybe 3rd or 4th in a lot of people's power rankings at this point. Now, they've got the potential and they've got the talent. My buddy Devin on the Buckeye Boys podcast brought up the other day that he just doesn't get the vibe from this team that it is a winning team. And the thought was that all these guys, these transfers that they got in, are guys who went to go up there to be pros. They're pros. Now they'll go up to Oregon, or maybe they would not have gone up there so far away from home, coming out of high school. Now they're ready to do that. They're older, they're more mature. So they're going up to Oregon, and they're going to go up there, developing NFL players, win championships. They're serious guys about their business. Devin brought up, maybe that's not it. Maybe this is, we see the recruits, the money, the flash, the chains, the cars. Maybe there's something different going on there. Maybe it's not a winning culture at all. And this is just all no substance to this. It's all flash. They're all in it for themselves. It's a possibility. We know it's always a possibility when you bring in a bunch of transfers. We're seeing it at Florida State this year. We didn't see it at Florida State last year. They do got a lot of transfers up there. Could that be it? Is this a culture issue? Is it a talent issue? Is it an offensive line issue? Is it all of the above? I just have a hard time believing that Dan Lanning runs a program with a culture issue, but we do know that there's a whole lot of image that goes into it. I don't know what the problem is. I think the answer is probably all of the above, but I'll tell you this. I thought heading into the season that Ohio State was going to win that game out there by a slim margin, and then beat them again in the Big Ten championship to win the Big Ten. I think Ohio State now at this point is a look ahead line. If I was making it now, a 7-point favorite heading out there. They've got time to turn it around between now and then, and they've certainly got plenty of time to turn it around between now and the Big Ten championship. But if Michigan ends up getting a little bit better before they go to Michigan, they got a ball game there. They may not make the Big Ten championship game. They got a game at Wisconsin. So Max is going to join me on the weekend show. I want Max's opinion on what the hell's going on up there, because I got to be honest, I was all the way in on this. You guys heard me in the offseason. I was all the way in. Like, this was by far and away. You had 4 teams at the top of college football. Ohio State and Georgia were in a clear tier by themselves. Then Texas and Oregon in a tier by themselves, but I had Oregon number 3. And then after that, there was a fall off in a cluster. And Oregon is not up there with Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas. Now, Texas, how much did they elevate in your eyes after beating that horrific Michigan team? To me, not a ton, though I don't think I gave them enough respect, because they did return all 5 of their offensive linemen, and that matters a ton. And that offensive line looked really good against that Michigan defensive front, but they only ran the ball for 3.5 yards. Pass pro, though, they look really good. It's a good offensive line. It's a good unit. It's a good team. Do you fear Texas in a head-to-head? I don't. I just, clutch quarterback. Quinn's good. Got some good weapons. The running game, not so hot against Michigan. And if you can't run against them, you can't run against us. I just refuse to believe it. I'm just not worried about them. I'm really just not. Georgia, they're the only team that I think represents a good challenge to these Buckeyes in a real meaningful game. Doesn't mean we won't lose one along the way, but it's still Georgia. I'm just not afraid of Texas. Texas sits number 2 in the polls. And I was looking, so as far as betting lines versus the polls, which, the betting lines historically are obviously more accurate than the polls, there are a couple big inconsistencies when we look at these polls. The polls are very much overvaluing Missouri, who they have at number 6. Missouri in the betting odds are number 12. They're also overvaluing Oklahoma State, who they have at 15, and they're not even in the top 25 in the betting odds. As far as undervaluing, Vegas says they're very much undervaluing Oregon, Texas A&M, and Clemson. Oregon's still at number 5 in the betting odds to win the national championship. So Las Vegas certainly thinks that Oregon is going to turn this thing around. Las Vegas also values Clemson at about 15, and the poll has them down at about 23. In Texas A&M, Las Vegas really thinks they've got them pegged. They have all along, even heading into the Notre Dame game when they were favorites to win that game by 3 points. Vegas has them with about the 15th best odds to win the national championship. They're obviously not ranked in the top 25, and they shouldn't be. And I just am not buying into that at all. By the way, did I show you the video of their quarterback with that mentalist guy on ESPN, Connor Weigman? So Connor Weigman came out, Texas A&M's quarterback, big-time 5-star quarterback recruit, been there a couple years. He was horrible at Notre Dame. And there's been some talk about this clip with him and this mentalist guy. Let me pull this puppy up. Have a listen to this guy and imagine this dude leading your offense.
Don't do that, bro. Don't do that, bro. Bro.
Hold up. Connor, craziest trick you've ever seen in your life. Who did you just think of? And you say, I'm going to call him right now. I'm going to tell him this guy just made a card I thought appeared in my shoe. Tell me, who were you thinking of?
My friend Carrie.
Your friend Carrie? You know what?
Look, don't do that.
Look, hold up. Hold up. You don't have to tell him. You can give it to him. His name's written on the back.
All right. That guy's amazing. Like, I know that there's some magician code. You're not supposed to reveal how that's done. But if you are a magician, or if you prefer an illusionist, if you could explain to us all how that happens, I'd love to have you on the show and let you explain to us how this guy can get a card in that dude's shoe. I don't get it. But here's the part I played this for. I want you to listen to Connor Weigman at this point in the video as he asks for his shoe back and then goes and sits down.
Oh, no, bro. Oh, bro. Let me see my shoe back. Let me see my shoe back, bro. Let me see my shoe, bro. No, bro. I swear to God, bro.
No, dude. No. I am not turning my team over to that dude.
Let me see my shoe back. Let me see my shoe back, bro. Let me see my shoe, bro. No, bro.
Get out of here, dude.
I swear to God, bro.
Yeah. He's not giving me vibes of the guy that I want leading my team. What I really like about it is we can see that it certainly seems like they want Jelani to win this job. And that's something we haven't seen in the past, right? We've seen them absolutely stonewall a guy in Jelani's situation. You're going to get it right in practice before you see the field, bud. We just saw him lead the team in snaps for tight ends. And in week 1, he was just 1 or 2 back. On the OHIO podcast, they do a show called Buckeye Boys. And I don't know when they're airing that show. Maybe Friday or something. I don't know. Maybe tonight. Who knows? But It was a really cool show. You might want to check it out. We talked about a whole bunch of Buckeye stuff, and they got in with me. They wanted to know all sorts of personal stuff, which I obliged. So if you want to hear that, it's over there at the OHIO podcast with Dev and Mello on the Buckeye Boys show, and pretty good show. Check it out. We were talking about the Big Ten, and what is USC's ceiling? Yeah, they're probably the next best team in the Big Ten at this point. What's their ceiling? Are they a national championship contender? Hell no, they're not. They're absolutely not a national championship contender. Is Penn State? No. Is Oregon anymore? Can they be? I think they still maybe can be if they can get things together, maybe get healthy on the offensive line. They are missing a piece or two, and they certainly have the weapons. Maybe if things come together, they can be, but USC definitely can't be. The point is, the Big Ten, I mean, this is a wrap, dude. These teams just aren't on Ohio State's level. They're just not. The truth is, you don't even need to think about how Ohio State's played to say they're the clear class of the Big Ten. Look at what everybody else has done. Oregon, Michigan, Penn State, not looking as good as everybody thought they would. Michigan definitely doesn't look as good as the pundits thought they would. They were a top 10 team entering the season, which was strictly because of last year. If you looked at anything else about that team, you knew that they weren't a top 10 team. Oregon, certainly, we've just talked about them and their fall off. Penn State looked great week 1, and then week 2 kind of came back down to earth. The only one that's improved is SC. Rutgers even looks worse than we thought they were going to look. So Ohio State basically could have just stood still, but they didn't. They went out and put on some really good performances, and without a doubt, the gap has widened, and you wouldn't find a pollster, odds maker, or anybody else who would disagree. It's not a Buckeye homer opinion. This is just what it is. So, all right, let's hit on a couple of recruiting tidbits before we wrap, and nothing good. Jerome Myles, the excellent 5-star wide receiver, the last big-time wide receiver on the board, a guy who decommitted from Ole Miss. He's from Corner Canyon, Utah. When he decommitted from Ole Miss in June, Brian Hartline offered him about a month later. And for a while there, we had the old kiss of death. Ohio State was his dream school. And I can't remember the last time we signed somebody from outside the state of Ohio who said that, though a lot of them do. When they come out and say that publicly, it's the kiss of death. He came out, said that, narrowed it down to his top 2, and it was Utah and Ohio State at the moment. At the time, Ohio State did not yet have, I don't even think we had Bodpin Miller in the class, but definitely not Phillip Bell. We were waiting on the Phillip Bell decision, but the thought was, even if you take Phillip Bell, you're still going to take Jerome Myles if he wants to come, obviously, and that's for sure. But how hard were you going to pursue him? I didn't think they really would pursue him very hard. And I also thought that despite Utah being the lead school, we would see Texas A&M get in the mix because they had shown some interest, and then some big-time money come, which the Buckeyes were not interested in spending on wide receivers. We've known that the entire cycle. And now he has he set a date, a commitment date. Buckeyes were in his top 5. He added some schools to the top to make it 5. And he has now moved his date up to make a commitment, dropped the Buckeyes out of that top 5, whittled the list down to 3, and it is Utah, the home state school, which his quarterback at high school is also going to Utah, and Texas A&M and USC. So you've got him now choosing between A&M or the 2 schools who are coming in with big money offers, and that's what it is. So Buckeyes officially out for Jerome Myles, not even in the top 3, and we figured this was a long shot, particularly after Phillip Bell, but really it kind of stalled before that happened. Also, some news on a guy I talked about a couple of weeks ago, Xavier Griffin-Haynes, 6'6", 220 edge rusher, top 150 kid in the class of 26 from North Carolina, which is, we're kind of gaining traction in there. We've got the Harrison twins, the commitment of Trajan Odom, and some good things in North Carolina going on right now. Xavier Griffin-Haynes looked like the next one. Top 150 kid, a raw kid, but a really talented kid. And there were some murmurings, got his Buckeye offer over the summer, that he was going to want to commit a little early. And we were kind of on commitment watch for about a week and a half there. And turns out that the Buckeyes weren't quite ready to accept his commitment. He did want to make a move early, and he wasn't ready to wait. So he went ahead and committed to North Carolina. A raw prospect. I get why they might not have wanted to take his commitment in the old system. In the new system that we're walking into with 105 dudes, raw or not, he's an aggressive football player who's 6'6", 220, top 150 prospect. Buckeyes clearly didn't agree with his ranking quite yet, but a ranking is based on a projection. I don't know, man. I don't know. Just seems like a waste not to take him. Doesn't mean you can't go back and get him. He is committed to UNC. So, I mean, if they really want him, I'd say that there's still an opportunity to get him. Because the last time I talked to him, it was NC State he was really big on, not UNC. So we'll see. But bit of a bummer there. Turbo Rogers, the running back that's committed to Alabama, who for a long time many thought would be a guy that the Buckeyes would get up for a visit, with Carlos Loughlin having the opportunity to flip to Ohio State to be the third back in this year's class with Isaiah West, with Bo Jackson. That is looking further and further away, but I've thought that's been dead for a month and a half anyway. That kid loves Alabama. He's still just one of two running backs in the class, even though Keelan Deere flipped from Ole Miss into that class. That's the number one back in the country. There's still just two of them. And there are two stud backs in Ohio State's class. So I don't think that's going to happen. Whether he comes up for a visit or not, it just doesn't. He loves Alabama. Like, that was his dream offer. He's thrilled to be in that class. And I think the only reason he's entertaining Ohio State is out of respect for Carlos Loughlin, who was the first guy to offer him a scholarship, I believe, when he was in 8th grade at might have been Memphis, when Loughlin was at Memphis with Mike Norvell and crew. And finally, Micah DeBose. Micah DeBose, the lineman who is committed to Alabama. Alabama got a great offensive lineman class, and he was a guy the Buckeyes were in early on, then kind of faded. He committed. He was going to commit to either LSU. Originally committed to Georgia, then it was going to be LSU or Bama. He chose Bama. Bucks made a big push late, had him in for an official, and I believe it was the next weekend he committed to Bama. Might have even been sooner than that after he left the official visit. It was a big blow to the class. Guy's got family ties up in Cleveland, and there has been talk recently that the Bucks have been trying to flip him, and that there was folks in the Woody who were feeling confident about it. Tavian St. Clair even brought it up unprompted when being asked about, who he was working on. So Tavian working on him, confidence coming from some people in the Woody. And I just read an article the other day, a little blurb by Bill Kurelic in 24/7 Bucknuts. And Bill Kurelic said that he had talked to somebody close to Micah DeBose a couple of weeks ago who said they were 90% sure that DeBose was locked in with Alabama. And today he reiterated that story and said the contact that he talked to close to DeBose now feels even more so. Now, what changed from the 90% to even more so? Maybe there was actually some movement going on, and Alabama did what was necessary to really lock it in. That could be the case there. At any rate, I think that the DeBose thing, which I never thought was going to happen anyway, is officially dead. This wouldn't be the first time that there was confidence in the Woody this cycle about a lineman, and that didn't happen. Henry Fanuco was not going to leave Ohio State from his official visit without signing, made it to his next visit and didn't leave that one at Missouri before he signed. They told the NIL folks that Josh Petty was going to happen, David Sanders as well. The confidence of these offensive linemen over this cycle, it's been through the roof, and it didn't end up happening for damn near any of them. So that's what we're looking at on the recruiting front. Not a lick of good news, all bad news for today. But Bucks got the number one class. How long that lasts, I don't know. We'll see. We've got Georgia making some moves, but doesn't matter. It's about who you got, not who you don't got, and they got some studs. As far as Naeem Offord goes, my gosh, man, I just wish the dude would make his mind up and we could figure out what's going on here as to what route the Bucks are going to go. But the Dorian Brew thing, the thought is Dorian Brew didn't commit to Ohio State because you had Sanchez and Offord. However, if Offord wasn't in the class at the time, Brew probably would have committed. He almost committed twice. At one point, he was, damn near in the class, didn't announce, and took his time, then started taking visits. Then almost, decision day, he almost commits again. And it looked like for a while there, he absolutely was. And then out of nowhere, he signed to Oregon. I say out of nowhere because the timing and just the way the information was coming didn't sound like that's what was going to happen. Well, he's been in that class at Oregon for a while. And Oregon now, I'll show you this picture. So not only did they have Brew, right? They got Brew first. The Bucks were also in on Brandon Finney out of the Maryland area, I believe, or Virginia area. Brandon Finney has ended up moving up into he's top 10 cornerback in the class. The Bucks were in on him, didn't push hard for him, and he ends up signing at Oregon. Well, Finney last weekend was on the sidelines at a visit, so he's making the rounds. He was at the Michigan-Texas game. Now, not so sure how that went or how he's feeling about that, but it seems like he's testing the waters. So let's say Brew is locked in. Is Finney an option if Offord flips out? If he is, it would be one heck of an option. And, I think it sucked that they didn't push harder for him in the first place. I think it's a really talented dude. He's a raw corner, but, we got a hell of a cornerback coach. So anyway, that's our recruiting update for the day. That's my show for the day. I appreciate you all so much. Please go ahead, hit the like button, and subscribe to the channel, whichever channel you're watching me on. And if you're watching me on Menace to Sports, please subscribe to me over at Juckonbucks. I'd really appreciate it if you could do that for me. And because you're my pal, I believe that you will, because I believe in you. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Juckonbucks out.